Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Like we weren't just talking about plants for 10 minutes, but that's okay. We're gonna we're like, hey, how are you?
Miracle Grow of
Uh,
Judgment.
I'm excited about tonight. I think we started talking about that a little bit too, because it's funny. So as somebody like I've done a lot of like self-growth in the past few years, and I like to consider myself a confident individual. Like I've done a lot of healing. I do feel like I have a pretty sturdy ground in who I am. But as a mother, I still can admit that I struggle sometimes with the fear of judgment. And
Mhm.
I think it's something that we need to talk about more. I'm excited to sort of hopefully have people sort of even just come in the comments if you're watching this later. Maybe it's even something we can circle back to eventually for even like a workshop, because I just feel like there's so much that you can talk about. And I want to start with this quote that I've actually, for some reason lately, it's one of those like universe quotes that keeps popping up. And I said it to so many of my clients lately, but it's you like nobody can make you inferior without your consent. Somebody help me. Who said it? I can't remember right now. Is it Theodore Roosevelt? It's somebody like that. But I'll have to look that
Yeah.
up just to give that person credit. But I want you to think about that for a second. Like nobody can make you feel inferior without your consent or permission. And
Mhm.
I think that it's important to start that way because I think as humans, like even before moms, like as humans, I think that we are born kind of trained with this innate desire to be accepted and to fit
Mhm.
in. We've talked about this, right? In the book
Right.
group. Like, we have just this desire that I think was just instilled upon us. And I think that there's a lot of healing that needs to be done from like people's past experiences before you embark on things like parenting styles and motherhood.
Mhm.
Because I do think that there is this like necessity for confidence and being grounded in like how you feel and how what you believe and like how you want to raise your children that I really think
Mhm.
can help with this fear of judgment. Because at the end of the day, like if we can be sturdy in our decisions and we can be grounded and confident and have that self-esteem, easier said than done.
Right.
Like we, I think, can be more deflective of other people's opinions because remember, like people's opinions only affect us when we start to like agree with them. When we start to let them soak inside of us and give
Mhm.
them meaning. Like if we are strong in our way and somebody says something that doesn't agree with us, but we are confident in our opinions, they're just words.
Mhm.
Now, the moment that those words start to become an agreement that we make with ourselves, or it's something that we begin to believe about ourselves, now
Mhm.
we're treading in some tricky water here.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I
And I
guess that's
think
that's
I think
oh
today.
good.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, that's it. I was gonna open it up.
Uh,
Perfect.
I I think personally in this world today, especially, we see a lot of social media parenting rather than reality parenting. And I think
Mhm.
that's where it becomes a huge issue. So instead of us, you know, keeping inward for ourselves, it's like we're pointing ourselves outward to be like everybody else. And,
Mhm.
well, this parent right here says that they only gentle parent and raising your voice is a form of abuse and your child will forever be, scarred from it. Whereas you have the other parents that are like, no, if you raise your voice, your child will listen and it'll get the point across. There's a happy medium between both. You don't need to, I don't know, outburst at your child, but even like a heighten in your voice, send something to the brain to say, hey, you know what? Mommy said stop 50 million times. There's a time and a place. You can, don't do that. No, no. Hey, you. And then you get to that 15th point where you're like, you know what? Hey. And that's where it hurts you in a way because obviously you raised your voice with your child, but it got them to stop. And it's not something that's gonna to escalate to anything further, and they're not gonna do anything further. But I think people are afraid to express themselves real. with the way, people judge. And I think that that's a huge problem in the momhood, in the parenting world, because if that's the case, you're not gonna be a true parent to your child because you're falsifying yourself.
Can I ask you a question? And this is for everyone, it's not just you, Colby, but like,
Yep.
do you feel like you parent differently in your home versus if you're in a public setting?
Nope. Absolutely not.
I'm thinking about it myself. No, yeah, no, and I just think that, yeah, because that's something to kind of ponder too. Like, are
Yeah.
you, if
I
somebody,
think
no, go ahead, Alex.
that depends, right, though? Because, like I really have to think about this. Like, that really depends because in my home, it's a like relaxed setting, right? But if there's other
Activity.
rooms in a specific place, like if we were in the movie theater or if we were at like a play or, something or at church, how I behave in those settings might be different, right? Because it's also based on structural norms. And then when I think about judgment in general, I think about two forms: true judgment, where someone says something directly to you as pointed criticism. And then I think of the other, which is perceived projected judgment. When in that moment, you are not meeting the standard you set for yourself, or you're experiencing self doubt because you haven't decided where you stand on whatever it is as a parent in your parenting journey, on the situation you're dealing with, you may perceive judgment from outside sources, but it's really just a reflection of an insecurity you feel or a self doubt within you. And I think it's super important to acknowledge that both of those exist. One of them is going to be very outward, right? And you should always meet it with curiosity because that also could be a perceived judgment when you think it's not meant to be. Oh, and the other is like, is it just in my head because I'm judging myself?
I like that. Yeah, yeah.
And to go along with that, Alex, it's a personal feeling too as a mom, because like you said, in your home, your kids act one way. They know the
Mm-hmm.
rules of the house. They know the persona of how they need to be in your four walls. But if they're around friends, cousins, other people at a play event, at church, I mean, even at our church, we've got a lot of little kids. And, like our father, he welcomes when the kids make an outburst or laugh or do something,
Mm-hmm.
because it shows a parent is bringing their kid there. So, kudos for you, even in the setting of feeling worried that they're not being very quiet at that moment. Kudos to
Mm-hmm.
you for bringing them. And I know in my own personal experience, my kids have their set rules in the house. And obviously, as a parent, it's expected they follow those rules as if they're in their own home elsewhere. Doesn't always happen. And in that aspect, you get yourself all worked up because people see them how they are in your house to how they are in their other setting. And it can make you feel like, oh my God, they're gonna think that I do something in this location rather than how I handle it in that location. And it sets off a spiral of you become either antisocial, or you feel like you have to parent a different way so someone doesn't expect you to, you know, be what's I'm looking for a specific word I can't think of, but it's I'll think of the word.
Yeah, I get it.
I'll think of the word.
Charlotte, what do you think? I'm passing you the mic, girl. We talked about this last week. It's all you.
So I definitely parent differently inside than outside, because when I'm here, there's control and it's structure. And when I'm outside,
That was the word.
yeah, it's weird. Like, and plus I have one, so I'm used to quiet and peace. And then I go out into the world and it's mayhem and I'm uncomfortable. It's not her, it's me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how
Yes.
to handle it, right? Like, you're like, oh my goodness. And then you're like, well, she doesn't do that at home. So you're like, oh, what the hell is happening? So yeah, it's just a little bit different for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, what I'm learning to do as I shift in who I am in of my life is a lot of how I used to navigate was to speak out immediately what
Mm,
was going internally. I was a verbal processor. And what I'm doing now is I'm shifting inward. So I'm trying to be less reactive and
mm,
more aware. So in those moments, now I think I'm getting better at me being like, I'm feeling anxious. Why am I feeling anxious? Is it because of her? Or is it because of, like Geraldine said, something out of the control? Or is it that I feel uncomfortable with how another kid is interacting with my child and I want to say something, but I don't want to offend the other parent? How am I going to navigate that? Like kind of talking it through in my mind first and then pivoting based on that.
I
Because
love that.
something I feel like I've said to my little one is different houses have different rules. I actually don't want her to behave the same way in my house as she does in other spaces. I want her to be more adaptable and more flexible because I think she'll have a more fulfilling life. That's not necessarily how I was raised. I was actually raised to kind of fit the same box no matter what. And I think it made me more rigid at times, which made me feel more anxious. And I want her to have a more flexible mindset. So that to me has been helpful when I started learning about that. Like, oh, different houses have different rules. I heard that at one point and it just like stuck with me.
Mhm.
And that gives her more freedom to behave differently in different spaces. And it allows me as her mom to have more freedom to observe and then adjust in the moment if needed.
mm.
I kind of love that because, like, at the end of the day, like, first off, I don't know if you guys found the handbook to like motherhood yet, but I can't freaking
No,
find it, right? Like,
There isn't one.
yeah,
Still looking.
damn, there
no.
is like there literally is one, right? Like, I've been
They
looking for
forgot
it.
to pass it off at the hospital.
I know, like, of all that, the
Yes.
pile of papers Emerson sent me home with, they forgot that one. But it's like, I think that there is to me, and I love that, like, I call that the pause, Alex, like when you start to really learn the pause. I think that that is one of the most powerful self-development tools that there is on this planet in every category of health. The pause. Take a moment, because I do think, like, and myself included, I'm a very just impulsive person. I think because I am a very highly emotional human. And so the first thing that happens to me when I get an emotional reaction is that I want to act on the emotion. It's been, I mean, that's something I've been dealing with my whole life. And I'm going to tell you 9 out of 10 times when I act on the impulse of emotion, 10, 20 minutes later, I come back and I reflect and I said, like, if I just paused, if I had
Mhm.
Yeah.
just paused, because it really feels like this wave. And I think instead of like feeling like the wave is going to like drown us and we have to swim right away, I think sometimes we got to let it wash over us all like completely before it kind of has, I know I like metaphors, before it kind of comes back to that like calm water again. And I think your children need to learn that. I think there's some power in them having to wait for your reaction sometimes. I'm learning that. I am
That's my
learning that,
thing
like
too.
with my 4-year-old, obviously every age is different, but he's learning like my emotions, but I'm trying to almost like narrate them at times when I can. And a
100%.
lot of it comes back to the pause. He
Mhm.
watches me pause. And I say, like, mommy's feeling angry right now. Like, mommy needs a second. Like, I need to feel angry and kind of figure out why I'm feeling angry before we talk about this.
Yep.
Because I'm going to tell you, guess why I do that now? Because I used to flip my shit. I literally, like, my gasket goes off, man, and I'm one of those people where I will go from 0 to 100. And this poor child looking at me like, what just happened to mom? Like, what was that? And I don't like,
Yeah.
I'm like, that is a moment of judging myself. And I will feel that guilt for days of like,
Mm-hmm.
what did I
Yeah,
do?
it's a cycle. It's
It
Yeah.
a
is.
cycle, right? You're just repeating a cycle. I was watching this video about first generation cycle breakers,
Mm,
and I think that's really helpful to be aware of. Um, but it's just like anything, we're
yep.
so routine oriented
Mhm.
that humans just naturally are, right? So you just go, you're like, okay, tick, I'm into this situation. I'm gonna cycle through this process. Tick, I'm in this new situation, cycle, routine. You know, like you're
Mhm.
really a machine in a sense, and your brain is just functioning based on patterns and algorithms. That's how it works.
Absolutely.
So you have to create a new habit because you're creating that. It's like it's that react and then shame, guilt cycle. It's just like, and it's awful. It's like this merry-go-round you don't want to ever be on,
Mhm.
but you get stuck on it, right? And until you, like you said, aim for the pause and then make a different choice.
Absolutely. And allow yourself to, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm about to make a
Yes.
sticky note. Where's my sticky notes? I feel like I need to put that on my fridge. Let's put that word. I want to do that. Let's like stick that somewhere in our
Yeah,
house.
that's a
That's
good
like
one.
pause.
Pause. Yes. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's like when you're about to go do something, right? Like if you think about something physically you're about to do and your body is telling you go to right, but you pause and you choose left.
Absolutely.
That to me is what it is. It's like, okay, no, I'm gonna do this instead. And every time you make that other choice, you're creating a new pattern in your brain to create a new behavior.
Mm-hmm. Oof. Speak
And
about
it's
the
life
language, girl.
changing.
It
It's
is.
life changing. Like it literally shifts your reality and it'll change the life of your child. I genuinely believe that. I think that if we can figure out a way to stay calm,
Mm-hmm.
our kids are going to be less anxious people. They're not going to be aiming towards perfection. You know, they're going to give themselves more grace. And the only way to do that is by start doing it for us.
Mm.
Yeah. I agree on most of that, and I love that. But I also feel like obviously not outbursting, but showing your kids, like you said, Chantel, the different emotions that, you are mad, you are upset with, if you told them something a million times that day and they just didn't listen. And it was just one of those really bad days. It's just expressing yourself shows them the expression, and showing
Mm-hmm.
that expression helps them understand so that someday when they are in the big world and they're off not being mothered by us, they are so independent to understand and know, you know, hey, it's okay to get mad. It's okay to get upset. It's okay to show these emotions because, their boss and I've had the experience, I've got my boss has completely thrown a file up in the air and cussed
Mm-hmm.
everybody out. And if my kid didn't know or understand that kind of emotion and they go into the work world, they're gonna be like, oh my God, how do I handle this? What do I do? Or, praising is a very, very wonderful thing, but you have to show the good, the bad, the ugly, the happy, the sad, the dark, the deep. It's just an ongoing cycle, but you have to,
Mm-hmm.
it's not about being, I'm not with words tonight. I don't know what it is. It's not with being balanced. It is all about balance. It's not about being just one thing or the other. It's a complete balance of emotions, dealing with how you raise your kids. And in each age is different. So, my daughter was the best 2-year-old. She's a super emotional 3-year-old. My son
Mm-hmm.
was, 1 through 4, super, super calm and awesome. And now he's opening himself up and he's
Mm-hmm.
experiencing himself and he's getting more vocal. And in that aspect, he himself learning at school his emotions. And he
Mm-hmm.
himself, from what he's learned from his teacher, will say, hey, I'm angry about this. I'm sad about this. I'm happy about this. And me too doing it shows the balance. And I know that the comfort parenting is something that'll make the kid not have maybe emotional issues down the road. But then again, maybe they'll have issues because they don't know how to deal with anger or someone giving them the 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 wrong end of the spectrum.
I hear you. I basically what you're saying is you want them to not be caught off guard by an
Right.
emotional reaction because they've had limited exposure.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but I think too it's everybody's gonna have a different parenting style. First of all,
Right.
I gotta say that,
Oh
and
yeah.
there is no one right way to do it. That 100 like exclamation mark underline.
Right.
So this is not me pushing my idea. I gotta make sure I
No.
always I formally state my goal. But to me, my goal is not to stay static.
Right.
So I do want to address that. It's not to be like a line, but it's to acknowledge my emotion. And like Chantal was saying, like I'm feeling such and such, but it's the difference between I feel and now I am.
Right.
I don't let myself shift into the I am, because if I become that emotion, I I'm teaching her how to use an emotion to control.
Mm.
And I don't want to do that. You don't want to ever use anger as a way to instill fear to control someone. You
Right.
don't ever want to use, um, you know, guilt to shame somebody into something, right? So I guess the goal for me is to try to stay in the I feel. Now, does that mean I'm never going to shift that into I am? No. I mean, we're people, right? But then that's where the grace comes in. Hey, I am accountable for this moment. And I don't care if you're 4, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to apologize, because that to me is an emotional, intelligent choice. I'm going to
Oh
say
yeah.
to you, hey, listen, I wasn't my best self. And you know what? You didn't deserve that, because my emotional journey has nothing to do with you. And it's super important for you to know that it is not your job to repair another human's emotional journey. And
Totally
so
agree with
that
that.
is how I navigate if I do shift into I am,
Mm.
because I don't want her to feel like her need is to repair or fix someone, or that it's a reflection of her.
Right. Yep. I follow that. I know I have my emotions, but at the end of the day, I never go to bed without an apology if I
Mm,
outlash. And I always explain to them the same, that it's not them. It's what I'm going through at that moment. And even if I'm going through that moment and they ask, what's wrong, mommy? I say, hasn't, you guys have done nothing wrong. This is something that's
mhm,
going on with me. And I always make that clear. But if they have done something wrong, I know at the end of it that I'll be like, I could have handled it differently. I didn't handle it the right way. I apologize. But I know in my parenting that I definitely have my moments where I get a little bit louder than I
mm,
should.
I feel like you're more aligned than I feel like that conversation, I think you're more aligned than you realize with that. Like I
Oh
think
yeah.
yeah,
what I was saying was that I think for me, I just try my best to be healthy with verbalizing my emotions. Cause like
mhm,
I want to instruct my children on emotions. They're gonna see me piss sometimes. They're gonna see me all every emotion in the book, like,
Right.
but I think my goal for my like just for my parenting is to start to learn, how do I verbalize this? Like, and
mhm,
especially, and this is for boys and girls. In my experience, I have young boys, so I'm trying to, I want them to be emotionally intelligent. So it's like they're
mhm,
gonna know the emotions, but it's not just in a reactive way. I would like them to be able to verbalize how they're feeling.
mhm.
So I guess for me, that's like as a parent, it's a little bit of pressure sometimes, and it does stress me out, because what it takes is for me to understand me, and
Yeah,
that has been challenging for me, because there are times where I'm like, why am I so mad about this, or why does this matter? I always ask me this. Like I'll be in like a fight, not like, back to back with my 4-year-old, just, those silly, like those silly arguments that you get in, and there's
Right.
stop and I say, why does this matter? Like, am I just arguing with my 4-year-old because I'm trying to be right? And
Oh, yes.
like,
Oh, yes.
those moments as a parent, and then you realize, like, does this matter? And then sometimes it doesn't. And I have to, instead of just saying, whatever, have your way, and like, whatever, you win, I try to talk it through.
But I feel like that's more of like the stay-at-home mom situation, because you're only with children all day. So you're like, I don't have adults to argue with. I don't have anyone else to be right against. So you're sitting there and your 5 and 3-year-old are coming at you, and you're like, you know what? Fisticuffs, let's go. It's one of those things. As like when the construction workers were here working on my house, I think I bothered them more than anything, because I'm like, adults, this is wonderful.
Talk to me.
And now that they've gone away and Jake goes to work, I'm like, let's go. Let's roll tide. Come on, guys. Just it's one of those. But I totally agree with that, Chantal.
Yeah. No, and I guess, I know it's 8 o'clock now. Darlene, did you want to add? I know you were going to add something a little while ago.
It's just interesting that we where we came from and where we are now looks so different. Like, just for real quick, last night I went to Roller Kingdom. Not sure if you're familiar, but I haven't been there. Right?
Yeah.
Do you know our parents used to drop us off when we were like 8 years old? Like, here you go, have fun, do this. And then like same thing like with the mall and stuff. But anyway, so I'm sitting inside Roller Kingdom and I'm so stressed out because I'm looking for her everywhere. My parents were like, call me to come get you when you're done. Where did it become so extreme that we needed to have so much control? I'm not suggesting we leave our kids at Roller Kingdom now, because it's a different world. It's a different world. But having to keep your eyes on the child for every minute of every second, like, where on earth did that come from? Right? So whatever we learned, we got to work on unlearning a little bit of it.
I agree. I
What
agree
the
with that.
hell? Where did that come from? It's so extreme now. There's no middle point that people are focusing on. It's just one thing or the other. So I don't know. We just need to figure out how to find a middle point and just.
I think that's where the judgment comes in, because if you leave your kids for too long, you're judged. If you are in your kid's face for too long, you're judged. There's no happy medium, and it's just like you said, it's a totally different world. And
it is.
And
There's
like
a
I
lot
always
of
say,
input. You have like a lot of input from all sorts of sources, right? Like, think about how much time people spend on their phone. You're constantly retrieving data from all sorts of sources, some of them valid, some of them not.
So real.
And then how are they taking up space in your brain? And then what are you also putting value into intentionally and unintentionally, right? And I think that's also a big difference too. Like, I remember, like, when I was growing up, the only kind of thing like that we had was like TV. We'd like we got to watch 1 or 2 TV episodes at night after we finished our homework.
Yeah.
Other than that, we were playing outside, riding our bikes, playing basketball, whatever it was. And we had dinner, but it wasn't like all of this information coming at you from all angles all the time. So some of it is also just feeling completely flooded. You know what I mean? And then also, that's the whole reason why we even have to talk about self-care, because it was part of people's daily lifestyles before. They didn't have to release all of this extra information from their brain because they weren't having to get it inputted. You left work and that was it. You didn't look at your email. There was no emails to look at. Like, it's just such a different world. That I was reading this book. It's called Leading with Emotional Compassion. And he talks about how we don't have walls and we have to create some walls. And I think that's super helpful to think about, because if you put walls around you for boundaries, it's very helpful.
No, I totally agree with that. Our big thing in this house now is on Fridays. Obviously, back in the day, Fridays were TGI Friday. You had, your family time. You got the popcorn. You had the homemade dinners, the family meals, and you'd sit on that couch and you would watch all those shows with your family. I looked forward to Friday. And it's so relaxing on Friday nights because it's the four of us and that's it. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to continue that. And when we go away, starting Friday for the week, unless I'm taking a physical photo, my phone goes away.
Yep.
Taking that memory and then phone goes away. Social media doesn't exist. Going back in time, that's it. Yeah.
Love it.
Need to start implementing the living in the moment rather than capturing the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that.
That's a good message. No, and I feel like another thing I just want to make sure moms are listening can hear too is like you have everything you need within the walls of your home. Like going back to that. I think a lot of us, like, we have this thing, and it's like Dr. Google, it's all of this stuff, and we're always reaching out. We're always looking, we're scrapping, we're like, I need help. I need this. I need to go watch these moms on Instagram and TikTok do their thing so I can learn. And I think I just want to like almost even just end with the message that like you have everything you need. And I think sometimes we're fooled by all of the stuff that we have access to, right? And the fact that we don't have walls, I think can be kind of an illusion. Now, do I think resources can be great sometimes? Of course they can. It's nice that we have things at our fingertips sometimes, let's be honest. Like, it's great. But I hope that people know that like they are enough without the pressures, like, do I think there's resources out there that can better us? Yes, of course. But like, I think sometimes when we're so busy looking like out there, I think sometimes it is just important to like empower yourself, like make sure that you know that you have the skills. And
Totally
if
agree.
it doesn't look right one day, then just try again tomorrow. Like there's always time. You're never gonna master motherhood. We're not.
No.
And I think we all have to agree with that. I think we all just have to make the agreement that it's not about, there's nothing to master.
Right.
It's almost like a living, ever evolving thing that we just have to continue to learn, right? I mean,
don't make yourself dependent on that one day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And also like give yourself permission to change your mind.
Ooh, I love that.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
and if you are just not unsure about something, that's fine. Like grace all the way. Like if you're having that moment where you're potentially sitting in a space of perceived judgment and you're like, dang, I don't even know how I feel about this. Examples, potty training, nursing. I mean, these are all the things that I've tried to like circle in my head with, like, how do I feel about that?
Right.
Is anyone judging me, or is it more just that I'm not sure what the timeline is for this and if I feel like I'm helping her meet her goal? Like, usually it's just I have to run through that in my head and then I can just be like, okay, what's gonna work for us? Like giving yourself that grace of time to find a place where you come to a space of calm. Like this feels right. And if it doesn't, just sit with it. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. It's okay to just be like, I don't know.
Right. And I feel like that's how they succeed faster. If you don't push them into things, they succeed in their own timing manner. Like even potty training, it's whatever is comfortable for the kid. And it's not a judgmental factor if it's something that is done at a pace that they want to learn. They will tell you when they're ready. And that's just how it is as a parent. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. If you want to breastfeed your child more for the more nutrients, do it. Do it.
Yeah.
Don't let other people tell you otherwise.
And also, it's okay if you're done with it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel
Right.
like it's like all the answers
Exactly.
are right. It's like, it's
Yes.
okay to say, you know what? I am realizing in this space, I am no longer feeling joy.
Mm.
Right.
And in
Right.
order to preserve my mental energy and also to be present as the person I want to be, I need to set a boundary.
Mhm.
And this is what it's going to be, you know?
Yeah.
I like that. I feel like that can be taken to like any area of life too, and in any phase of motherhood. Like I think that we need to be in check with that.
I agree.
Really.
Yep.
I love it. Anybody else want to just add anything at the end? Are we good? We good?
I think we are
That was
good.
good.
I know.